So I'm going to do a brief demonstration on how to use the CGR application in OASIS. So when you go to your Wake ID portal, you'll see an icon for OASIS there. Go ahead and click on that, and you'll see several tiles, and depending on what you have access to, I happen to have 4, but you want to see the Student Support Services tile, and then go ahead and click on that. When you open that, you'll see this screen. And OASIS is a module that was created more than 5 years ago to store our cohort grad rate data that we receive from DPI. This is the place where you update your high school's data. So if you don't have access to this application, contact Student Support Services and ask for access. And once you do, you open this up, and this is the screen that you will see. On the left side, you will see cohort graduation rate. There's actually 2 applications in here: audit file summary and an audit file student detail. And then there's also several reports that you can take a look at that may be useful. But generally speaking, you will be using this audit file summary. So go ahead and click on that. When you open that, you will see a screen showing the cohort graduation audit file. It'll show your school's name, and then you'll see a few boxes: filter by, cohort exit code, grad status. Before I check either of these boxes, let me click on this Get List. If you do that, you will see a list of the students in your cohort. This particular school that I'm demonstrating here has 584 students. These are the students that DPI has identified as your 9th grade cohort. Most of them are currently enrolled in your school. There are a number of them that have an exit code of ? And these are the students that we're going to be updating. So what you will do to do that, let me show you this filter by. If you check on that cohort exit code and the arrow in that box selects, you will see there are 3 cohort exit codes. 0 has not left the school, 9 graduated as listed in the official list of graduates, and then a ? If you were to click on 0 and then hit Get List again, you will see that that list is now 508. So the vast majority of the students on this list are currently enrolled at your school. And you can see in the list below, they're listed in alphabetical order by last name. They also have a student ID, and then it also shows their current grade level. And if you want to see if these students are on track to graduate, you can select them and take a look at the number of credits that they accumulated and whether or not they have taken required courses. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to focus on the students with a cohort exit code of ? Go ahead and hit that button again. So this school currently has 72 students that DPI believes are in the cohort but are no longer enrolled at the school. So your job is to find out where they went. And using that document that DPI has created, that guidance on cohort exit code, you can use that to determine, based on documentation in the student's cumulative file, what exit code to assign them. You can do this list one by selecting the students by clicking in the box next to their name. You can also right-click and print out the whole list. You can also select this box, the big box Select, and it chooses all of them. And what you want to do at that point is scroll to the very bottom of the list and choose Select, Edit Selected Students. And it will bring up a screen for that first student on the list. For each of the students on your list, you will see several boxes worth of information. The first box is student information, showing the student's name and when they withdrew according to DPI. their ethnicity. Since they're no longer in the school, you won't see a current grade, but you will see their gender, their race. The second box is updatable information. This is where you're going to actually assign an exit code to the student. Let me come back to that and finish showing you the rest of the screen. The next box is DPI file information. This is the information that is on the big file that we receive and then upload into this application. So it shows the initial year that they entered your school. In the case of this first student, he entered in 2020. The initial collection is when DPI pulled the data on this student. The initial grade of the student, and then also the last year he appeared at your school and the last collection date. And all of this information is based on data contained in PowerSchool. So at some point in time, the student left your school, is no longer showing up in PowerSchool, and DPI has flagged this student for you to tell them what happened to him. The last box of information is data that we've pulled from PowerSchool, academic information. It shows the student's 9th grade entry date. If there is a weighted GPA, it'll be there. This student has left, so it's not. The total credits earned by the student. This box is more useful really for currently enrolled students if you want to see whether they're on track to graduate. So in the case of the students that we're working on today, these students with a question mark, you're going to go to this updatable information. The 9th grade cohort year should be accurate. If you have a question about whether a student should or should not be in the cohort, I would suggest addressing that question to Roger Regan in Data Research and Accountability, and he can check that as well. You can also consult Student Information Services about the student's 9th grade year. Generally, to change the 9th grade year, we have to submit a data adjustment to DPI. We can't change this by updating data here. What you're going to focus on is this next field, cohort exit code. So when you do get this list of students, you're going to have to get their documentation from their cumulative folder. If their folder is empty, then you're going to have to try to figure out a way to get other information about the students. But generally speaking, each student should have a folder with some information about where they went when they left your school. So you're going to open up that drop-down menu and based on that documentation, choose one of these codes. And there are about 15 of them. There's 0 through 9, and then there's A through G. Some of them are more common than others, and some of them we can't actually enter. 1 and 2, DPI is the authoritative source on those now. You can go ahead and if you think the student has transferred to another school in the state, indicate that, but DPI won't update that student's code without finding a record of that student somewhere else in the state. So generally speaking, you're going to be assigning either 3 through G. Number 3, relocated outside the state of North Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. If you find a record request in the student's folder from a school district in another state, you can go ahead then and choose 3 for this exit code. The next field here underneath that is, what is your document source? And we've aligned these codes with the sources that DPI recommends as being sufficient or appropriate for that code. So in this case, you can choose one of these. I'm going to go ahead and choose official request for student record. After that, there's a box called notes. Here, this is more for your benefit, to remind you, for example, student went to Iowa or student transferred somewhere else. Any information you want to put in that notes field may be useful to you. And when Data Research and Accountability downloads your updates, that information is useful in verifying the accuracy of the codes. So that's generally what you're going to do for each of these students. is look at their documentation, choose the code that represents the explanation for their withdrawal, indicate the document source, and possibly write a note. And then you see over here on the right side of that box, there is a submit button. And I'm going to go ahead, click on that. And then after you have submitted that button, it will update the student's record. Okay, and then you can go back up and click on that next box to go to the next student. And if you only have time to do one or two at a time, you can go back and exit and come back in another time. Let me go back out here and just briefly explain to you. School reports, if you're interested, the first one will just show you the records that you've already updated. The second one will show you, and this would be for later on in the year after you have updated a lot of records and they've been submitted to DPI, it'll show you the list of students that have been removed from your cohort. If you are choosing an exit code that removes the student from your cohort, once that's received by DPI, that student will no longer be on your list and that student will be removed from this database, but you can take a look at that report if you want to find out which ones you've already removed. If you choose a code for a student that does not remove them from the cohort, like 4, a dropout, that student will count against your school's graduation rate and will continue here on your list. Once this code has been submitted to DPI, when you open up your file again, you will see that the color of the cell will have changed to green. And this just means that the data was uploaded to DPI. So in any event, this is a fairly straightforward application in OASIS. And if you want more details about it, in the resources section of this course, there is an audit file summary description that Student Information Services put together that shows you all of the fields, how they are updated, and any other information you may need to do that as well. So that is it for this demonstration. Thank you.